There's a story I've been hearing for years now, and it goes something like this. Johnny Carson, at the absolute height of his power, was going through a very public and brutal divorce. One that threatened not just his personal life, but everything he had built. Night after night, he did what he always did. He smiled, he delivered the monologue, he kept America company before bed. Then one night, Katie Lang walks onto the Tonight Show stage and sings Pullin' Back the Reins. As legend has it, when that chorus hits, it cuts Johnny to his core. When the song ends, he's visibly shaken. His voice cracks as he throws to commercial, a man who never let the audience see behind the curtain, brought to tears on live television. It's a beautiful story. But it's not that simple. Pullin' Back the Reins, the night Johnny Carson cried, on this edition of Dynasty Vinyl. Perhaps to truly understand the weight of this story and why it matters, you have to understand who Johnny Carson was. For those of us who grew up watching him, no explanation is needed, but if you're younger, if you're just discovering vinyl, late night culture, or this era of music, here's the Cliff Notes. Johnny Carson didn't just host late night television, he was late night television. One network, one chair, one voice. Millions of people watching at the same time, night after night. It seemed his presence was as common and as necessary as the air we breathed. If Johnny liked you, your career changed overnight. If he didn't, welcome to the never was. That was a level of cultural dominance we're unlikely to ever see again. And he carried it effortlessly. Calm, in control, and unflappable. At least, that's what we saw. What the audience didn't see was the cost. Johnny Carson's personal life was very complicated, especially his marriages and divorces. By the time the 1980s rolled around, those struggles were no longer private. They were tabloid fodder, public, expensive, and emotionally draining. And yet, every night at 11:30, that red light came on. Late night television doesn't pause for grief. It doesn't slow down for heartbreak. Johnny Carson showed up night after night. That's the gig. A work ethic from a bygone era, Johnny created the gold standard for late night television. Crack a joke, introduce the guest, shake the hand, keep the mask firmly in place. That tension between the man and the role is what gives this story its gravity. Enter Katie Lang. In the early 1990s, she experienced her first true global success. Not hype, not flash, something far more rare. Respect. She wasn't loud, she wasn't chasing trends, she sang with restraint, control, and emotional intelligence. She was a crooner, reminiscent of the late, great Patsy Cline, and she was Canadian. A homegrown artist from the prairies of Alberta who cut her teeth touring juke joints and dive bars across that great country in the early to mid-80s. Talk about tough! Katie Lang grew up watching The Tonight Show with her family. Johnny Carson wasn't just a television host to her, he was part of the soundtrack of growing up. So, when she walks onto that stage, the story feels right. A fan, a song with resolve in its bones, a lyric about standing tall when everything feels like it's slipping away. She sang it with intention, and she sang it for Johnny. You could almost see it. This is where the legend tightens its grip. The lights are low. The performance is understated, no theatrics, no excess. Just a voice, delivering a song about knowing when to pull back and when to stay upright in the saddle. The camera cuts to Johnny. He's listening, not hosting, not performing, just listening. The song ends. There's a beat. Johnny turns to the camera. He smiles, but it's thinner now. His voice isn't quite steady as he thanks her and he sends the audience to commercial. For a brief moment, that armor slips. That's the version of the story people remember, and that's the one that keeps getting passed around. Here's the truth. That moment, at least as it's been told, likely didn't happen. Here's what I was able to uncover in my research. Johnny Carson's most painful public divorce occurred in the 1980s.
Katie Lang's first appearance on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson wasn't until 1987 when she performed In Care of the Blues with her band, The Reclines, and it's an amazing performance.
So, they did cross paths. She did perform on his stage many times, but there's nothing to corroborate this legendary tale. No footage, no confirmation, no record of tears on that night. So, no. This story isn't historically accurate. At best, it's an urban legend. And yet, the story refuses to die. Because sometimes a song arrives with such emotional precision that it feels like it must have landed somewhere important. Because sometimes we want to believe that even the most composed figures, kings of culture, masters of control, were still reachable by music. And because Pulling Back the Reins carries a truth that doesn't need permission from the timeline. Whether Johnny Carson cried that night or not, the power of the song remains. And that's why, before you do anything else, before you argue the facts, before you debate the legend, you should just listen. Really listen. Until next time, I'm Ling Dynasty for Dynasty Vinyl. Thanks for watching.